From this slide, we'll study the tax credits, which will be different from the deductions, okay? So tax credits is the benefit amount rather than the deductions. The first one, salary income tax credit. 근로소득세액공제 in Korean, okay? Very simple tax table, tax calculation. It depends on the amount of salary tax. If the salary tax between 0 to 1.3 million, the tax credit amount 55%. Salary tax times 55%, you will apply the salary income tax credit 55%. It's a lot. But your salary tax should be very low, below 1.3 million. It means that the salary tax is lower than the 1.3 million. It means that the gross salary should be lower, okay? Not the big amount. Then you will get the salary income tax credit, 55%, okay? Over 1.3 million, 30%. Salary tax exceeding 1.3 million of salary tax times 30%, you will get tax credit. However, as always, you have a limit for salary income tax credit. Here, gross salary. It depends on the gross salary, the amount of gross salary. Your gross salary, 0 to 33 million, the limit is 740, okay? 740. If you just apply this tax credit calculation, 55%, if the amount just exceeding 740, you just can apply only 740,000, okay? Gross salary, 33 million to 70 million, max between number 1 and 660. Number 1, the calculation, exceeding the gross salary exceeding 33 million times 0.8%. Okay? Gross salary 70 million to 120 million. Maximum between number 1 calculation and 500. Over 120 million. Max between number 1 calculation and 200,000. Let's take a look. Just the higher of your gross salary, the lower the limit. Only 200,000. Okay? So it means that if your salary is high, then you just get just a very low the salary income tax credit, only 200,000. Okay? It means that just if you have higher salary, you should pay more income tax, salary income tax. Okay? The limit is going down. The gross salary going up, the limit is going down. Okay? This is a salary income tax credit. Second, credit, tax credit. Here, children tax credit. If you have children, then you can get children tax credit. Who can apply for children tax credit? The person who has children or grandchildren. You may have children, or you also have grandchildren. Okay? You have salary income, but you may have grandchildren. Okay? You may have grandchildren. Then you can apply children tax credit. How much will it be? The amount. Then depends on the number of children, or you gave birth to a child, or you adopt, if you adopted, okay? The number of children the age should be 8 and above. On the contrary, if your children, the age is just below 8, then you cannot apply the children tax credit. No? So the age should be 8 and above. Okay? So number of children, you have only one child. You have you can have the children tax credit 250,000. If you have 2 children, you may get 550,000 children tax credit. So you have the number of children high, then you will get the higher just the children tax credit. Over 3, if we have 3 or 4 or 5 children, then you should use this calculation. Okay, 550,000 plus the number of children exceeding 2, the number of children, then times 400,000. Okay, we'll take a look at the simple example from next slide. Okay, and birth or adoption. If you have the first birth or first adoption, then you can get 300,000 children tax credit. So this birth or adoption is different from the number of children tax credit. Okay? Here, second birth or adoption, 500,000. Third and more birth or adoption, then 700,000. Okay? So if you have number of children, if you have maybe just one child, you may apply 250. And if you give a birth to a child this year, means just a second child, then you can apply birth or adoption tax credit in 2025. Okay, here is the example. Children tax credit example. The first example here, okay. You have one child. He or she 7 years old. You gave a birth to a child, second child, was born in 2025. Then you may apply children tax credit, 1 plus 2. You have also one child, okay? So number of children, your children is 2 children, right? 1 3 years old and second child was born. So you have 2 children, but both the age is below 8. One is 3 years, second one is 1 year old. Okay? So the number of your children over age 8 is 0. So you cannot apply the number of children tax credit. So the tax credit, number of children tax credit will be 0. Understand? However, you gave a birth to a child in 2025. The one birth in 2025 is a second birth because you already had the one child. This is the second birth, right? This is second birth. So you can apply birth or adoption tax credit. Second birth was 500,000. If you look at the previous slide here, first birth 300, but you had second birth, right? So 500,000 tax credit you can apply. You may apply second birth tax credit, 500,000. So total children tax credit will be how much? 1 plus 2. 1 equal, no, 0. So 500,000. Here, the second example. You have 2 children. You have two children. One is 14 years old and second one is 6 years old. Here, twins were born in 2025. So in total, you have 4 children, right? 14 years old, 6 years old, and 0, the 1 month twins were born in 2025. Okay? Children tax credit 1 plus 2. Number of children and birth or adoption children tax credit. Okay? So here number of children, one child over you have 4 children in 2025, right? But you have only one child over 8 years old. The first one, 14 years old, 6 years old, and the twins below 8 years old, right? So you have only one child applying for number of children tax credit. So you will apply for 200 for the number of children tax credit, only 250,000. Okay, and birth or adoption tax credit, 2 births in 2025. Twins were born in 2025. So I told you third or more third adoption, birth or adoption is 700,000 here. If you look at this table, the amount, birth or adoption tax credit here, right? Third or and more birth or adoption will be 700,000. 700,000 per birth or per adoption. So here, birth or adoption, 2 births in 2025, twins. The twins, third and fourth birth, because you had already 2 children, 14 and 6 years old. Okay, so 700,000 per birth and adoption, third and fourth birth. So you will apply 1.4 million tax credit. So total children tax credit will be 1 plus 2. The first number of children tax credit will be 250. And birth or adoption will be 1.4 million. So if we add 2 numbers, you will get 1,650,000 Korean won. Okay? This is children tax credit. Third one, tax credits. Individual pension tax credit. Individual pension. Who will be applicable to this tax credit? The person who deposit in individual pension account. We call this individual pension account in Korean 개인연금. 개인연금. Okay? So if you deposit some money in individual pension account after owning individual pension account in the bank, then you can apply for this individual pension tax credit. Okay? This is different from individual pension, is different from national pension. National pension is the social pension forced by the Korean government. I told you in previous slide, you should pay national pension automatically when you get paid every month. So your employer withhold the national pension amount from your salary and should pay that amount to the Korean government. But individual pension account, you just voluntarily open this individual pension account for your retirement life. Okay? So the reason the government gives you this individual pension tax credit just to encourage you to save some money for your retirement life. Okay? After your retirement, you need money. So the government just induce you to just save the money. Okay? Then to just apply for this individual pension tax credit, the amount will be the minimum between 1 and 2 times the rate. Number 1 amount is here. Minimum between 2 amount plus deposit in individual retirement pension. While this will be difficult, here, let's take a look at the calculation first. Here, deposit in individual pension account, the minimum, the deposit amount in individual pension account, and 6 million plus deposit in individual retirement pension. We call this just simply just IRP. Here, individual pension account is totally different from the individual retirement pension. This individual retirement pension, IRP, is the separate account from the individual pension account. IRP. So you should have both the accounts, individual pension account and the individual retirement pension account. If you go to the bank, then you can just open both the pension accounts, IRP accounts and individual pension accounts. So if you deposit in individual retirement pension IRP account, then you may have more tax credit. Here, total limit. So minimum between 1 and 2 times rate will be the individual pension tax credit amount. Okay? Here. Individual pension tax credit, here, it depends on the gross salary. The amount of gross salary, the credit rate will be different. If your gross salary is less than 55 million Korean won per year, then you may apply 15% the credit rate here. Here, credit rate. Minimum 1 and 2 times credit rate, 15% or 12%. If your gross salary exceeds 55 million, you can apply it only just 12%. 3% lower than this gross salary amount range. Okay? So limit of individual pension account, 6 million. Total limit including IRP, 9 million. So which means when you do this calculation, minimum deposit in individual pension account, minimum deposit in individual pension account and 6 million plus deposit individual retirement pension account, okay? Then 9 million, total limit will be 9 million. So if you have only individual pension account, you don't have IRP account, then you can just apply only just 6 million. If you have both the accounts, individual pension account and IRP account, then you can apply 9 million times here, 15% or 12%. It depends on the amount of gross salary, okay? So if you have enough money, I recommend you have both the pension accounts, individual pension account and IRP account. This is individual pension tax credit, okay? And next, insurance premium tax credit. Insurance premium. This is private personal insurance premium. Okay? Who can be applicable this insurance premium tax credit? The person who pays premium for indemnity insurance. What is the indemnity insurance? This is different from the national health insurance premium. That is, national health insurance premium is the social insurance forced by Korean government. This is indemnity insurance, is your voluntarily the insurance. Okay? So the indemnity insurance can be defined like this one. The refund amount after maturity of this insurance contract should be lower than the total insurance premium. Okay? That is the indemnity insurance, which means to get the insurance premium tax credit, the nature of this insurance should not be the savings, the insurance, saving insurance. Okay? this should be indemnity insurance. Okay? Maybe just car insurance. That is one of the indemnity insurance. Okay? Or just you may get just the amount, you may just receive the amount from the insurance company if you get injured, if you get just a car accident, then just that is called as indemnity insurance. Okay? Then if you have this kind of indemnity insurance and pay just the insurance premium, you may get just the insurance premium tax credit. The amount here, number one amount times 15%, number two amount times 12%. Okay? Number one is premium paid for the disabled. If you have the disabled among your family, and you may just have contracted the insurance for disabled, then you pay the premium, then you may apply the insurance premium tax credit, 15% of total premium. However, there is a limit for this premium paid for the disabled, 1 million. Second one is general insurance premium times 12%, 3% lower than the premium paid for the disabled, okay? So this has also the limit, 1 million limit. So totally, if you have the insurance for the disabled, and if you have the general insurance, if you have both insurances, and you paid a lot, more than 1 million premium, then the maximum insurance premium tax credit will be 1 million times 15%, 1 million times 12%. How much will it be? 270,000. Only 270,000. It's a small amount, right? It's small amount. It is insurance premium tax credit. And next one. This is very complex tax credit. Medical expense tax credit. No? Well, you may be sick, or your family members may be sick and go to the hospital to cure the disease, and you pay the medical expense. Then you can apply medical expense tax credit. Okay? However, very complex. As you see, in this table, you need to just classify four classification here, the medical expense. Okay? So first one, general expense. Second one, special expense. I'm telling you medical expense, okay? General medical expense, special medical expense, or the medical expense for premature baby. Premature baby. Okay? Shorter than 9 months. Okay? Then we call this premature baby, right? Then the premature baby has a lot of problem. Then you should pay medical expense. Then you can get medical expense tax credit for the expenses for the premature baby, okay? And the last one will be the medical expense for infertility, okay? If someone has difficulty in having a baby, then they should go to the hospital and pay the medical expense for the infertility. Then you may apply for the medical expense tax credit. Okay, so you should classify the medical expenses like these four categories. Four categories, okay? Here, this is the final calculation. 1 plus 2, general medical expense plus special medical expense, 15% tax credit. Number 3, premature baby times 20%. The total medical expense times 20%, you can apply the medical expense tax credit. Number 4, infertility. The medical expense for infertility, 30%. 30%. Okay. So here, the contents. What is the general expense? What is the special expense? Here, medical expense for the dependents. How about you should exclude 2, 3, 4 here, because 2, 3, 4 tax credit here, this calculation, not this calculation, first one. So medical expense for the dependents, yourself, your spouse, your children, or your parents. The calculation here. Number 1 expense, general expense you paid minus gross salary times 3%. Okay? Gross salary times 3%. It means the general expense exceeding 3% of gross salary will be the general expense, which can be applicable to the medical tax credit. Okay? However, this general expense has the limit, 7 million. Even if you just paid just maybe 10 million, you just can apply only just 7 million of general expense, medical expense. Here, general medical expense minus gross salary times 3%. This means to get general medical expense credit, you should pay at least the medical expense at least 3% of gross salary. If you pay less than 3% of gross salary, then you cannot apply the general medical expense tax credit. Okay? Let's suppose maybe just if your gross annual salary is maybe just 100 million Korean won, 1억, then you should pay at least 100 million times 3%. How much is it? 3 million Korean won. You should pay at least 3 million Korean won for your general medical expense to get the medical expense tax credit. Okay? Special expense, taxpayer. If you pay the medical expense for yourself or dependents below age of 6, young child, right? Dependents below age of 6 or dependents over age of 65, senior over 65, or the disabled, or the expense for the serious disease. There are many serious diseases. For example, like cancer, right? So if we pay these kinds of medical expenses, we can classify those expenses as special expense. So number 2, special medical expense times here, gross salary times 3% minus 1. If you could not spend the general expense, the 3% of gross salary, then the amount should be excluded from the general expense. So this calculation means you should spend at least the medical expense at least 3% of your gross salary should be excluded from the special medical expense. Number 3, number 4, the same. Number 3, medical expense for a premature baby or curing for the inborn disease. Inborn disease. Okay? Inborn disease. Then this calculation, the medical expense for a premature baby minus 3 times of gross salary minus number 1, number 2. And times 20%. Number 4, the expense for infertility, the same. The medical expense for infertility, medical expense for infertility minus gross salary of times 3% minus 1 to 3. You should exclude this amount below 3% of gross salary. This amount, gross salary times 3% minus 1, minus 1, minus 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 means just you should spend at least 3% of gross salary. Okay? So 1 plus 2 is 15%. 3 expense, number 3 expense 20%. Number 4 expense 30%. Okay? Here is the example for medical expense tax credit. Okay? This is the first example. Okay? Here, let's suppose your gross salary is 100 million. Okay? So here, case 1, example 1. You just spent this amount for the medical expenses. The one is general expense, 11 million. Special expense, 6 million. Premature baby, 5 million. Infertility, 4 million. Okay? Then, how much the medical expense tax credit be? General expense, here, you paid 11 million. There is the minimum amount you should spend here. The calculation, 3% of gross salary should be excluded, should be deducted, right, from the general expense. So, here, 3 million will be calculated your gross salary times 3%. The minimum amount you should spend for medical expense. 100 million times 3% will be 3 million. So 11 million minus 3 million will be 8 million actually. 8 million. But I told you here, the general expense has the limit. How much? 7 million. Even if here, even if you got just 11 million minus 3 million, you will get just 8 million, right? Even if it is 8 million, you only apply 7 million because the limit will be 7 million, okay? You should be careful of this limit, 7 million. So possible amount for general medical expense tax credit is 7 million. So credit rate will be 15%. So 7 million times 15% will be this amount, 150,000 Korean won. Second, special credit, tax credits, special expense tax credit. You just paid as a 6 million, okay, 6 million here. And you just paid more than 3% of your gross salary. Then you cannot, you don't have to just deduct this amount, okay? So 6 million is the possible amount to apply the medical tax credit. The rate is 15%, 900. Premature baby, you paid 5 million, no minimum amount, because you already paid at least the 3 million, 3% of your gross salary. So 5 million will be the possible amount, and rate will be 20%. The credit amount 1 million. Infertility 4 million. Possible amount 4 million. The tax rate will be 30%. So 1.2 million. So if we add all these credit, you will get just 4,150,000 Korean won for your medical tax credit. This is the first example. And if you go to the second example, everything is the same. Your gross salary amount, everything is the same. But only the difference is this is the amount of general expense. The first example was the 11 million for your general medical tax credit, medical expense. However, second example is only 1 million instead of 11 million, okay? And the rest of the amounts is the same. special 6 million, premature 5 million, infertility 4 million. So here, how much will the medical expense tax credit be? The first one, general expense. You paid just only 1 million instead of 11 million, right? So 1 million, there is the minimum amount you should spend for the medical expense tax credit. It should be 3% of your gross salary. It is 100 million times 3% will be 3 million, right? So you just paid less than 3 million, right? So the possible amount will be 0, okay? So general medical expense tax credit will be 0, okay? Here, special tax credit, you paid 6 million for your special medical expense. You should deduct this minimum amount. You paid only 1 million, okay? So 2 million, you should pay more 2 million to meet the minimum medical expense amount, 3% of your gross salary. So 2 million should be deducted from the special medical expense. So possible amount will be 4 million. The rate, 15%. Credit amount, 600,000. Premature baby, you just used the minimum amount, 3% of the gross salary here for the general tax medical expense and special medical expense. So the possible amount is total amount of premature baby, 5 million times 20%, 1 million. Infertility, 4 million. Possible amount is total amount, 4 million times 30%, 1.2 million. So if we add all these credits amount, you will get just 2.8 million. Okay. If you compare the amount of two examples here, the first two example is 150,000. Second, 2,800,000. Okay. Because of this general medical expense. This is 1 million, only 1 million, and the first example is 11 million, okay? This is medical expense tax credit. Education expense tax credit. Who can be applicable for this education expense tax credit? The person who pays education expense for the taxpayer, yourself, or your dependents, except for the parents. Even if you pay medical expense for your parents, you cannot apply the education expense tax credit, okay? You need to consider this. The medical expense for your parents, you cannot apply for education expense tax credit. How much you can get the education expense tax credit here? Minimum between 1 and 2. The credit rate will be 15%. Number one amount is just total education expense. There is limit for education expense tax credit. Yourself, taxpayer, no limit. No limit. Your dependents, your child, your spouse. Here, university, student, your dependent, 9 million. Other than university, elementary school, middle school, high school, or kindergarten as well, 3 million. Okay, 3 million. Here, special education for the disabled. If you have the disabled in your family, then you may just spend a special education expense for the disabled, and there is no limit for education expense. Okay? So here, yourself, no limit. Dependents, university 9 million, other than university 3 million, including kindergarten. Okay? And here, you need to consider this one as well. Taxpayer, here, dependents, only university. Graduate school, dependents, no unique education expense tax credit. However, graduate school, tuition graduate school for yourself, taxpayer, is possible. Okay? Here. This is the example for education expense tax credit. You, taxpayer, the age 46. You paid the university tuition. How much? 4 million. Okay? You have a spouse. Your spouse is attending graduate school. Okay? Graduate school. So, you paid the graduate school tuition for your spouse, 8.2 million. You have one daughter, age 14. You spent textbook in middle school, 200,000. Tuition after school, 1.9 million. 1.9 million. And you spent the money for uniform, school uniform, right? 400,000. And your daughter is taking the private English 학원, right? School, the institution. You paid the private English institution 1.4 million, not your regular school. This is a private English institution, okay? You have one son, age 5, and attending kindergarten. So you paid kindergarten tuition, 3.5 million. Okay? So here, how much can you apply for education expense tax credit? Here. Yourself, university tuition. Do you have any limit? No limit for yourself. Told you here. Taxpayer, no limit. So you don't have limit. So 400 million. Taxpayer, 400 million. Spouse, you spent the graduate school tuition. I told you, graduate school tuition is impossible for your dependents. Okay, only to the university. Okay, so you cannot apply this graduate school tuition, 8.2 million. Okay, so spouse, education expense, 0. Your daughter, textbook in middle school, 200,000 possible. Tuition after school, 1.9 million. You paid this tuition after school to the regular school, middle school, is possible. Uniform, 400,000 possible. However, this private English institution, the tuition, 1.4 million is impossible. Okay? So if we go to if you're just dependents, go to the private the school, the 학원, you cannot apply for education expense tax credit. Only regular school. Okay? Elementary, middle, and high school, and university. Okay? So 4.5, 1.4 million is impossible. Your son, kindergarten tuition, 3.5 million is possible, but as I told you, the limit is 3 million. So if you add all this amount, then you may have 9.5 million. And tax rate is how much? 15%. 15%. So 9 million times 15% will be 1,425,000 Korean won tax credit, education expense tax credit. Okay? Okay. This is education expense tax credit. Here is another donation tax credit. You may donate, right, to the church or temple, right, or non-profit organization. Then you may get donation tax credit. So who special donation, general donation, yourself and dependents possible. However, the politic donation, hometown donation, employee association donation, these are the kinds of donations, right? So 2 donations, yourself and dependents, possible. Donation tax credit, possible. However, these 3 donations, only you, taxpayer, pay only these politic hometown employee association donations, only you can apply donation tax credit. Okay? How much will it be? Public donation, politic donation, below 100,000, 100 divided by 110, okay? Almost 100,000. Almost the amount you paid as a donation, okay? 100,000 to 30 million, 15%. Over 30 million, 25%, okay? Hometown donation, below 100,000, this ratio. 100,000 to 20 million, 15%. These 2 donations, below 10 million, 15%, over 10 million, 30%, okay? There is a limit. Also limit here. Politic, hometown, special donation, 100%. Salary income after salary income tax deduction. Employee association donation, 30%. General donation, 30%. Okay? There is a limit as well for donation tax credit. 기부금 공제. Okay? I think this is the last tax credit here. We have many tax credits, right? Monthly rent credit. Who can be applicable? The person who does not own house. You do not own house. If you own the house, you cannot apply monthly rent credit, okay? And the gross salary does not exceed 80 million. You should have both conditions. Not owning house and the gross salary amount not exceeding 80 million. Okay? Both conditions. And you pay the monthly rent for your living, then you may apply monthly rent tax credit, okay? How much? If your gross salary is lower than 55 million, monthly rent times 70%. If your gross salary is over 55 million, a little higher gross salary, the lower tax credit rate applied, 15%, okay? 17% and 15%. There is a limit here. Monthly rent, the limit of monthly rent is 10 million. Even if you pay maybe just 20 million for a monthly rent, you only just 10 million apply for the monthly rent tax credit, okay? The times 17% or 15%, okay? There are another conditions here. The size of the house you rented should be lower than 85 square meters. 85 square meters, okay? Or the house you rented, the price of the house you rented should be lower than 400 million, okay? And if you rent the house with a big size or just with a higher price than the 400 million, then you cannot apply the monthly rent tax credit, okay? This is monthly rent tax credit, okay? Okay, so there are so many tax credits and deductions. If we go back the calculation, if we go back to the frame again here, tax amount after credit. We're almost there, here. From the top, this annual gross salary minus salary income deduction and many deductions, applying tax rate, you get the salary income tax amount and deduct many tax credits we talked about so far. You will get tax amount after credits. And you deduct tax prepaid. What is the tax prepaid? This one. Withholding tax amount. Paid by whom? Your employer. According to this withholding tax table. I showed this withholding tax table. The amount of your monthly salary and the number of dependents, your employer will withhold the salary income tax every month when you get paid, okay? And that will be the tax prepaid. So here, you should deduct tax prepaid, and you will get final tax amount. And here, final tax calculation, if total tax withheld every month less than final tax amount, you will get tax refund. Total tax withheld every month exceeds less than final tax amount, you should pay additional tax amount. Okay, this is 연말정산, year-end tax settlement. This is the last tax credits we studied today. So you may apply a monthly rent tax credit